Back now on Newsmax Prime, Larry Klayman will join us momentarily. As you can see, Donald Trump continues to speak at the rally in Raleigh. Let's listen in.
The $150 billion back. I can't do it. I want to do it. I want to do it so badly. And you're right. You should get it. You should get it. Oh, you're right. But we don't have the money. I'm sorry. And they'll go crazy. And then we leave. And we say, to hell with them, double up the sanctions again. And they'll say, we'll drop the $150 billion. We have rank amateurs dealing for us. I have the greatest businessmen in the world, Carl Icahn, many, endorsing me. We're going to bring so much back. We have right now, I say it's $5 trillion. The government says $2.5 trillion, but it's a lot. In other places, in other areas across the seas that we want to bring back. My tax plan, which cuts taxes for everybody, by the way, including business and middle class in particular. It cuts taxes. We're going to bring all that money back, and that money is going to be spent in the United States. Right now, they can't get the money back. So you have corporate inversions. You have companies leaving the United States to get their money. They can't get their money back. It's impossible bureaucratically, and the taxes are so ridiculous that only a person that's really, really, really dumb would say, send it back. So they leave the money over there, and they take the company, and they move the company to the money. You ever hear that one before? And it's happening all over the place. Take a look at what's going on. And it's going to end. It's going to end. We're one of the highest taxed nations in the world. We're cutting the hell out of taxes. We're cutting the hell out of these ridiculous regulations which are destroying our business.
And you hear Donald Trump in Raleigh at the rally explaining part of his tax plan. Tax cut for everybody and a way to bring business back to the United States and not to have it leave in the first place. We welcome your calls during this program at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. And as promised, let's welcome via Skype from Northern California, the founder of Freedom Watch, Larry Klayman. Larry's a former federal prosecutor. He has served as an attorney for Sheriff Joe Arpaio. And Larry, once again, we welcome you and we thank you for your time here on Newsmax Prime. Let me just ask you something that's out there. Andy McCarthy wrote about it at National Review earlier today. Did Jim Comey and the FBI essentially rewrite federal laws to let Hillary Clinton off the hook today?
Absolutely. You can see our press release, JD, at freedomwatchusa.org. Essentially, James Comey, who was thought of as a very honest man, and probably by Washington standards, he is honest, which is not saying much. Basically, he took a dive. And the reason he took a dive is because everybody that's powerful in this country, whether it's the Clintons, and they're the worst example, there's no crime that's beneath the Clintons. Hillary even stole the furniture when she left the White House in 2000. We had to expose that to get it to be brought back. But you've got Richard Nixon, you've got Barack Obama. The higher-ups are not held accountable. It's like the National Football League. There's an American conference, there's a national conference, they all scratch each other's back. It's the money train. But Comey knew that if he recommended prosecution, that he, as a political appointee, would never get another appointment in Washington because the Democrats could block it. This thing has been rigged from the start. Donald Trump is absolutely right. I said it long before Donald Trump. Our legal system is corrupt to the core. And I think, we've just celebrated our Independence Day. We're back to 1776. I advocate civil disobedience, a la Martin Luther King. It's going to take another revolution to bring this country back. Regrettably, and I'm a lawyer of 40 years, it's not going to happen in the courts, JD. The legal system is entirely corrupt, and the Clintons are the worst example. She's off scot-free right now.
Well, let me go from that, from the courts and your cautionary tale, to Comey today, if not saying he was going to give it to the prosecutors for indictment. Dick Morris was on this program earlier, and essentially he said Comey, at least rhetorically, politically indicted Hillary Clinton by calling her actions extremely careless. So was that Comey's way to try and even it out, to decline to prosecute, but heap all sorts of scorn and perhaps accurate description on the carelessness of Mrs. Clinton?
In his own inadequate way. Remember, James Comey, and I've worked with him in other cases, and I believe him to have more integrity than most people in Washington, But he is a political animal, and he knows that if he took the strong position to indict Hillary Clinton, his career is essentially over. And he overlooked a bigger part of the scandal, which is the likely use of that email server to do business while Secretary of State Clinton was selling waivers to do business with Iran and other perks for money into the Clinton Foundation and large speaking fees. This is called bribery. And of course, just last week, our Supreme Court, to use the term loosely because it's hardly supreme, it's frankly a disgrace, our Supreme Court made a ruling with regard to Bob McDonnell, the Virginia governor, that to prove bribery, you have to be able to show that even if you took the bribe, that you wouldn't have taken the action otherwise. This entire system, JD, is rigged so the higher-ups will perpetuate their power. The Democrats and Republicans are happy to share it. That's why, frankly, Republican establishment is trying to destroy Donald Trump right now. They'd rather have Hillary Clinton. The money train continues.
Well, let's go to the grassroots. Let's go to the phones at 1-877-Newsmax, out to the Beehive State of Utah. And calling in from the town of Roy, Sandra is on the line. Sandra, welcome to Newsmax Prime.
Hi, JD. And I'm so glad you have Larry there because maybe he can answer this question better than anyone else.
Well,
I've been following the news, and I was under the impression that the State Department was doing an investigation, and they didn't drop their investigation, but they stopped their investigation so that they wouldn't get in the FBI's way. And so what I'm wondering now, since the FBI's come back with its finding, if the things that Comey laid out today could go with the State Department's investigation, because that's where you're going to get into the Clinton Foundation and the pay-for-play kind of stuff.
Well, that's going to be the appearance, but that's not going to be the reality. The State Department cannot bring an indictment. Only the Obama Justice Department can, and we saw how that works. Attorney General Loretta Lynch has a private meeting, a secret meeting with Bill Clinton on her plane. Everything is fixed. Everything is rigged here. And what I'm saying is, if we want justice, we, the American people, are going to have to rise up. It's only one day after July 4th, and our forefathers rose up against King George III. Frankly, he was a better ruler than either Hillary Clinton would be, or Barack Obama, or Bill Clinton, or for that matter, some of the Republicans. And we're going to have to take our country back, and it's going to have to be done in a peaceful way with civil disobedience. We cannot no longer rely on the courts, and you're looking at a lawyer who has used the courts throughout his legal career. Sure, I've had victories in the courts, but you know, the country now is much worse off than it was even during the first Clinton administration. It's worse off than it was even a few years ago. And the fact that someone like James Comey, who essentially, and I know this sounds harsh, would take a dive here to preserve his own ability to get appointments later, that's what I believe, his career would have been ruined, tells you that he cannot stand up to the establishment. It's time for the American people to stand up to that establishment. And frankly, it's going to take extreme nonviolent measures to do it. I don't advocate violence. I never have. But it worked for Martin Luther King. It worked for Lech Walesa in Poland. It worked for Mahatma Gandhi in India and in South Africa. It's time for the American people to realize that, frankly, we're going to have to take the country back our way. Either it's our way or the highway for these political elite.
Two minutes are left, Larry. We'd be remiss if we didn't take another call. Let's go to Danbury, New Hampshire, to welcome Cheryl to Newsmax Prime. Cheryl, what's on your mind tonight?
Oh, I feel that Hillary Clinton should be held accountable for everything that she has done wrong. She is no good. She is a cancer for our country, and she should be held accountable. She would not make a great president, and everybody that
let me ask you this, Cheryl. You go so far as to say she should be arrested?
Yes, she should be arrested, and she should be wearing an orange jumpsuit.
All right. Well, let me go back to our friend Larry Klayman. Larry, we've got about a minute remaining. You're advocating nonviolent efforts to make change, but in the final analysis, doesn't this rest with the American people as the final jury on Election Day 2016? Can the American people, through use of ballots rather than bullets, make the change necessary? You've got about a minute.
First of all, as the head of a nonprofit, JD, I can't recommend who to vote for, who not to vote for. But I can say this, yes, I mean, that is one way to try to change things. But over the course of time, we've seen that going to the ballot box has accomplished little to nothing. We had Richard Nixon. We had Lyndon Johnson, who did even worse than Nixon at the time. We had George W. Bush, who wiretapped American citizens. He was not held accountable. We have the Clintons, who committed one crime after another. We have Barack Obama, who's committed about 20 scandals. He gets off scot-free because if anyone challenges him, they're a racist. This country has broken down. Consequently, the legal system is no longer the means to do it. We may win this case or that case, like I won against the NSA for wireless wiretaps again. But for this country to be preserved, the American people need to rise up. And remember what Jefferson said: when the people fear the government, there's tyranny. When the government fears the people, there's liberty. We're at that point again.
And
We're
on
back
that
to
note,
1776.
Larry Klayman of Freedom Watch tonight via Skype from Northern California. Larry, we always appreciate your perspective. A reminder, we're going to take more of your calls at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. We'll talk over this on both sides of the aisle with our political panel next.